feel about that?
Well, I can say,
First,
go
go
ahead.
ahead, Riley.
It's all right.
Go ahead, Angel. Go ahead,
First of
Angel.
all, that story broke my heart. Like, I'm over here like devastated. Like, having the counseling background and knowing that bipolar and with schizophrenic tendencies is a medical psychological diagnosis, and that is not a spiritual thing. Now,
In
I
church,
do
that
understand there
happens
are,
a lot more than you
yes,
think, though. It
that just
happens a lot.
broke my heart. Um, I guess with that, I grew up in churches that didn't address that stuff. Like the spiritual warfare stuff, they didn't talk about. So, just coming from a different religious background, I had to learn all that stuff on my own, per se. Like, I had to do research and reach out to people outside of my general churches. Um, but to kind of answer what I think about that, like, when I I was always grew up where you didn't take medication for mental illness. Um, Going back to, you would be institutionalized, and that was all my family knew just because of experience. Well, um, I prayed and I poured out to God, and I was like, all right, God, why do I feel this way? Like, I would, my depression was so bad that I would take my kids to school. I wasn't working, so I'd come home and I would sleep. I would get up. Sometimes I would eat lunch, sometimes not, because I just feel, forget it. It's not even worth getting up off the couch. Go get them, and then force myself to be a mom until they went to bed, and then sleep again. So it wasn't like there was nothing normal about it. And so finally I got the courage to call my doctor and my medical professional and say, hey, look, can I just come in and get a physical? Am I, like, I was willing and dealing with God because I didn't want depression, because then I'm labeled with mental health issues in
Right.
my family.
Right.
And so I was like, let it be something off with hormones, let it be something wrong with my blood, let it be a medical diagnosis that's not mental health related, and we're good. And when all my blood work came back, I was like, well, I guess that's my answer. And my doctor was very patient with me, and she was like, I'll do all the blood work, we'll make sure it is nothing else, and then we can decide on a treatment plan. And if you still don't want medication, we'll figure something out. But I don't understand, like, I'll just say, God made doctors with the knowledge to treat certain things. And my opinion is, if that is what you feel you need to do, and it is, I don't say everybody does, because everybody doesn't need medication to deal with it. Some people, it's a seasonal thing, and they can work through it through whatever other means they have. But I personally needed medication. And so, I think it's a personal choice. I think um, it's a medical doctors are gonna hopefully do the best. I won't say all of them, but
Right.
hopefully do the best diagnosis they can to get you the help. Um, but also, what you were saying earlier about not having the outlet, you also need the counseling or the mentor or someone you can talk to, because I use Celebrate Recovery, like I said earlier, but it's a two-way kind of thing, from my perspective. So
Riley, because you brought up deliverance, and that's what kind of
Yeah,
triggered that memory for me.
yeah. So I agree with the with with the medical part and the spiritual side. Now we got to understand, and I know that you do understand it as well, Angel, being in the counseling aspect of it, that there are different levels to mental illness. You know what I'm saying? So when you talk about bipolar and schizophrenia, that's like higher than your normal anxiety or depression. You see what I'm saying? Your
yes.
bipolar, or
Mhm.
your bipolar can be coupled with depression, because you can have extreme highs or extreme lows. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
And it's very hard to maintain a balance unless you are on that medication, and things of that nature. So I believe that with the severity of it, depends if it's low, moderate, or high. If it's high, then you may need that counseling and that medication and the spiritual portion of it. You see what I'm saying? For it all to work together. Now, if it's very low, then you may not need that, but it depends on the person. You know what I mean? And it goes with those who do believe and those who
Right.
don't believe. You
Absolutely.
see what I'm saying? So I would say this, like, if anybody in church, I'm addressing the body of Christ right now, if anybody in the body of Christ doesn't believe that these people in the Old or New Testament didn't go through any mental illness, you're not reading your Bible. You know what I'm saying? Because you had Moses who was angry, you had Abraham, I mean not Abraham, but Elijah was suicidal. You feel me? You see Paul, he was a crazy nut too. You know what I mean? He had a thorn in his flesh. I mean,
Hmm.
come on, man. What was that thorn? Was it a mental illness? Was it lust? Was it this? What is that? You know what I'm saying? So we have a lot of people who are going through uh, um, um, a lot of things in in the Bible. As a matter of fact, let's take Abraham. Maybe people may say, "Well, what does Abraham have to do with that?" So listen to this. When his wife Sarah said, "Go sleep with," was it Hagar?
Yeah.
Go sleep with Hagar and make me a baby. How in the world would you think a man would feel if a wife would tell him to go? I mean, and a good man, a good Christian man, because not
Right.
not
Thank you.
not
Thank you for
not the other men
clarifying.
that they'd be like, "Oh, you want me to go do this? I'm with it." But no, the ones who really believe in being faithful to their wife, and then their wife is telling them to go sleep with somebody else for a baby, that's traumatizing in itself. Because then you're giving yourself to somebody else. It's not just sex. You see what I'm saying? So that can cause some trauma, some trauma right there. That could cause some depression, some anxiety, and things of that nature. See, the Bible doesn't really specifically say what they're going through in between those moments. But you
Yeah.
can kind of
Yeah.
read in between the lines. Nobody in their right mind would just be like, "Okay, I still with her, got your baby, and then I'm fine. I'm moving on." You know what I mean? I bet you he was like, "Oh, questioning, like, you want me to sleep with?" Oh, and then after it's done, and then Sarah's looking at you like all crazy, and I guess I could say from watching that Bible movie and seeing how the you know what I'm saying, the visual played out, she wasn't really too happy, even though she got what she wanted.
Right.
See what I'm
Right.
saying? So you got to
Yeah.
think about that, like, man, the
Yeah.
after effects, and that's
Yeah.
traumatizing. So we got a whole host of people that went through this stuff. Just because it wasn't mentioned in the technical or the medical term as it is today, doesn't mean that they didn't went with it. So if they went through it, so if they went through it, we're going to go through it as well. You see what I'm saying? We're
Yeah.
a part of that, all of their lineage anyway. You know what I mean? So, I mean, I believe that it needs to be addressed on a case by case basis. You know what
Okay.
I mean? And the body
Yeah.
of Christ should learn how to do that and don't sweep it up under the rug. Man, let's talk about it, man. If you
Mm.
need to cry,
Mm.
pour it out. You know what I'm saying? We're not going to emotionally suppress you. You know what I mean? We're not going to
Mm.
mentally suppress you as well. You know what I mean? That's why it said, in the first step, I admitted that I am powerless. You know what I'm saying? And my life became unmanageable. You know what I'm saying? Because we have to. And then it's talking about, even in the Bible, to confess your faults one to another. We need to do that, man. If you cut that off, as we have experienced, man, we're
Yeah.
going to bottle that stuff up, and that gives foothold to the enemy to use that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. I want to give a shout out real quick to our brother Orlando Presents, who
Oh,
popped
what
up
up,
and he
Lo?
said he said, "Hey, what's up?" Um, I'm glad you brought up two things. Number one is that there are extreme highs and extreme lows depending on what you are battling and what you are dealing with. There are extreme highs and lows. And I'm saying this because there are some people who are watching who you're having symptoms and you've had symptoms for most of your life. And number one, you haven't dealt with it and you haven't acknowledged it. And then number two, the people around you don't know how to deal with you. Um, because even with myself, there were times where I would be like, again, the life of the party, and then the next minute you turn around and I'm quiet. I don't have anything to say. It would shift. I would have these extreme highs and these extreme lows. I would have, a great day, or the first half of my day would be great, and then the next thing I crashed, like just crying, just like the sky's falling. Oh my God, nobody cares. I'm, so alone. Um, God, why is this happening? There are extreme lows, highs and lows, and I even see conversations that I've had with people and then seeing their posts, sometimes it looks like they are so emotionally unstable. It looks like they're all over the place. But these are some of the signs of depression. These are some of the signs of PTSD. Um, Anxiety, again, that's a different thing, because you can you can be fine with anxiety, and then all of a sudden you'll go to the point where you're almost having a panic attack, and it's like all of your senses, it almost seems like you got spidey senses, and it's like you can hear and feel, and everything in the room is magnified to the 10,000 power, and you feel like you're coming out of your skin and you're ready to climb a wall, but anxiety may not feel like an extreme high and low, in the fact of feeling isolated and then wanting to cry and wanting to ball up and feeling alone and stuff like that. That's why I said there's some extremes. And I know for a fact that there are some Christians who are dealing with issues and they haven't been diagnosed. People around them just say, oh, well, they're just emotional. And the thing is, they're not just emotional. They're actually showing signs of what's now been called mental illness. Um, and they don't understand how to deal with it. So one day they're all encouraging and they're talking and their life is right, and then the next minute you turn around and you're like, man, why are you over there talking about you just give up and you're tired of people and you're tired of life, and the people around them don't know how to deal with it, because they literally just like, okay, well, dude, what's wrong with you? With you know what, I don't even want to be around you. Like, I don't want to be bothered with you, because I don't know when you're going to flip a switch and turn into somebody else. And the big problem with that is that if you are experiencing those symptoms, that reaction makes what you're feeling amplified, because in your mind you're already like, man, why am I trying? Like, nobody wants to be around me. I feel so isolated, I feel so alone, I feel so lonely. And then when a person reacts like that to you, that causes more trauma into what you're already feeling. So there are people who are out there now who are having these symptoms, who have not been diagnosed, and maybe they do need medication, maybe they don't, like you guys were saying. And I just want to encourage, those people now who may be watching this going, man, like you just described everything that I'm going through. It does not mean you're crazy, but you are going through something where you need to, like Riley was saying, we gotta, like the Bible says, we need to confess our faults to one another. You need to find that accountability, like celebrate recovery, both of y'all. Like y'all, both of y'all like witnesses to that. Find who you can talk to that is not going to make you feel like an invalid or make you feel like you're losing your mind, and confess that, like, these are some things that I'm going through. I'll be honest with you, that's how a big part of how I had even I it's like, in my mind I knew what it was, but I didn't want to label it. So
Mm-hmm.
it took me actually talking to a friend and describing what I was going through to say, you know what, there may be some other things, going on. Let's see what it is. Um, and just for those who are on Facebook, again, if you have any questions, we're not going to be on here for but maybe another 20 minutes. If you have questions that you want to throw out, please, you're welcome. This is an open format. Um, but be encouraged. You are not crazy. It also, and I don't know if, yeah, I know both of you guys will probably relate to this. It, it and it affects relationships as far as husband and wife, who you're dating, who you're prospectively dating. It very much affects that, because if you're dealing with it and they don't know how to deal with you, and I want both of you guys, if you don't mind, to take a minute to speak to that. When you're going through your stuff and you got stuff going, but the person you're dating, or the person you're married to, or the person you're engaged to, they don't know how to handle you. They don't know what's going on. Speak to that person who is going through that. Riley, go ahead and jump in there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah, go ahead.
All
I'm gonna point you out. Not for any reason. It's just instead of
right.
waiting, I was like, let me just throw a name out.
Okay. Um, the person that's so what you're saying, the person that's dealing with this that may be in a relationship and it doesn't matter. Maybe it's a friendship or marriage or whatever the case may be.
Exactly. They're going through it, and the person that they're either friends with, or are married to, or engaged, they they don't know how to deal with them, and it just kind of makes them feel like, okay, well, something's wrong with me. Well, now I know something more is wrong with me. Well, how do you deal with that relationship that you still want to cultivate it, you still want to be in it, and you feel that that's something that God's led you to? So how do you have that relationship? How do you talk to the person who doesn't seem to understand what's going on? Like, how do you do that?
Yeah, that's a tough thing. Because I know that first and foremost that you have to have a supportive partner. You know what I'm saying? Regardless of the fact, if you don't have a supportive partner in a relationship and they're not, you can't go to them with everything, even with your mental illness, even with your, your suicidal ideations or whatever the case may be. If you don't have that, then it's not going to work anyway. Uh, but if you do have that, what you want to do is like you want to sit down and be honest. Now, you want to find out that person is a supportive of you in all areas of your life before you even enter in. You know what I mean? You want to make sure, even for yourself, and this is from a personal aspect. I always, before I enter into a relationship, like I've been with nobody's since I've been divorced. You know what I mean? Because I did not want to put on that baggage onto them. It's not fair. Let me deal with what I need to deal with for, especially if I can tackle it early on. Let me deal with that first. Let me get it underway, and then those things need to be disclosed with the person before you enter in. Now, if you're already in a relationship, this is something that ultimately you're going to have to tackle anyway because you can't hide it. You know what I'm saying? It's going to come out. So, how you're going to deal with that is, I'm going to put this as less harshly as I can. I don't want to say put on your big boy pants, but this is something that you're going to have to face. We say this in the recovery community: face addiction. So you're going to have to face your mental illness. You're going to have to face what could come after that. When you tell that person, you know, and it's something that's going to have to be done in a process. You can't tackle it all in one day. you know um, what are you going to be able to agree on as far as medication and help and things of that nature? Some people don't need the medication, they just need a psychiatrist or a psychologist or other kind of counseling measures, things of that nature. As far as um, the spiritual side of it, I would definitely say if you have a trusted advisor in the body of Christ, minister, leader, pastor, then both of you need to go to him or her, and sit down and lay everything out, because you have to be honest. You can't hide anything if you really want that help. You know what I mean? So that's just some of the things that I would do. But personally, I probably wouldn't even enter into a relationship until I had those things underway. I just can't do it. That's just not fair
Really?
to the individual. Yeah, because if there's something that I see and that may pop up, even beforehand, like even right now, there are some things that pop up that I just noticed, like in the last few months, that I was like, oh, I thought I was over that. I said, I can't carry that over. I need to deal with that. Or if I do decide to do something of that nature to enter into a relationship, I need to be forthcoming, like right off the bat, and make sure that I just don't dump everything off in like the first couple times we meet up. You know what I mean? Because then it may be too much for the individual to handle.
You're
but,
right about it.
you know, but you want to make sure that you are honest about that. Like I've suffered this in a previous relationship, and I'm still dealing with this. If this is something that you don't want to deal with, then it may not be in our best interest to enter into a relationship that requires intimacy, not in that other intimacy, but intimacy is
Yeah,
in regards to
yeah.
the relationship, though.
Angel.
So I come from it a little bit different viewpoint as I am married and when I dealt with it. Um, but kind of playing off what you said, like it was hard not admitting that I had that. Um, when we first got married, it was a problem. Um, but once I was ready to admit it, I actually went to my sponsor from Celebrate Recovery and asked them for her to please pray at a certain time that I was going to talk to my husband about it, because my anxiety made it really difficult even to talk to my husband. Like I was always fearful of what he would say, or how he might take it. That so I had someone praying for me when I decided to talk to him about it. And then after that, I realized, I don't know if you guys know this or not, but like your significant other can't read your mind. Did y'all know that? Did you know that? No?
Yes.
Well, I
Hey, I've
just
never
learned
been
this.
married, so I'm gonna go with what y'all say. I've never been married.
Yes.
So, like, I learned that it was okay to tell him, hey, I'm having a really hard day today. That's why there's dishes in the sink. I really did my best, but that was my best. I gave you my best. I just didn't meet the perfection bar I set for myself. So I've gotten more comfortable with that. Hey, I really am just super tired right now. And he's even gotten where he'll be like, well, why don't you just go take a little nap? Go close the door to our bedroom, go lay down and rest, and I'll come wake you up at whatever time. So he has actually been my biggest supporter in it, and so he encouraged me with the doctor too, and was like, "It's okay." So he was trying to help me work through that baggage of we don't talk about it, it's not okay, be afraid because they're going to lock you up, kind of stuff. So that's how I addressed it. I couldn't quite take Riley's don't enter in before you deal with it. So we just kind of had to deal
Right.
with it on the fly. Um,
Right.
so, but I mean, I did have to, I mean, it sounds silly, but I had to be like, well, he doesn't know I'm having a bad day. He just knows there's dishes in the sink. And that frustrates him. And so I have to be like, honey, I'm really sorry there's dishes, but today I just couldn't. And so he's gotten okay with that. So I think explaining it to them, whether you're married or just boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever relationship, I mean, just whatever relationship, even friends, like I have friends, they'll be like, hey, you want to go out for lunch? And I'm like, I'll say yes, but know that on the day I might be like, look, I just can't today. And so being able to express that even in friendships is important for me, because no offense, if I invite somebody to go eat out with me like 5 weeks in a row, they ditch me every time, I'm gonna be like, hey, what's up? um, so just like prerequisiting expectations, because your expectations for me have to be a little bit different than someone who doesn't deal with depression the way I do, because
Mm,
I get
mm,
tired. Like I'm just, one of my symptoms is exhaustion.
yeah.
Um, and so it takes, if I show up for you, that means I care a lot about you, because I have taken extra energy that I had to
Yes.
just like get from somewhere and bottle it up, and here I am. Because I, like, for example, I'll be like, well, we got like 2 meals left, so I really don't have to go grocery shopping, because we can eat for 2 more days. And instead of being like, okay, we got two, let's go to the grocery store, let's get this. I'm like, mm-mm, I got 2 days to build this energy up to know I got to do this. Um,
Hmm.
so that's just kind of a practical example of that. So
And
that was a little bit of a tangent, but
no, 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 no. Because I love how you guys like just bring up other stuff off the cuff, because there is a delicate balance of being an introvert who struggles with depression. And the reason why I say is there's a very intricate balance is because as an introvert on the whole, you have to have rest, because just dealing with people on a day-to-day basis is draining. So if we go days without rest, then it everything that we're dealing with, it by the end of the week is triggered so much to whereas we're running around like crazy, like not being able to focus on anything because it's not rest. So as an introverts, we need rest. But the balance when it flips over to the other side is that when it's extreme depression and is manifested in the way of sleeping all day. Now, I'm saying this specifically because depression looks different for everybody. A lot of people just think that depression is just sleeping all day, eating all day, eating junk food all day. There are different levels to depression. There are some people now who have gotten so good at hiding it that until you're with them behind closed doors, you really wouldn't know that they suffer with it because they've become so good at masking it. And you could be, I'm going to say this and then I'm going to give like my last question for you guys and we'll kind of wrap it up. Is that when you're dealing with severe depression and the levels of it, there are a lot of people that I know in ministry who struggle with extreme depression. And one of the biggest signs is you are battling extreme memory loss. That is an extreme sign of severe depression, is that you will actually struggle with memory loss. Like you'll have a hard time remembering. And now when it's coupled with PTSD, this is what makes it worse, is because not only are you struggling with your memory, but now you're losing huge patches of time. There was a book that came out years and years, not years and years ago, said like I'm 150 years old, um, called "Who Switched Off My Brain." And in the book, Dr. Leaf talked about the thing with depression is that it actually medically, like they took a what is it, an X-ray or MRI, something. They took an X-ray of the brain and how a healthy brain looks. Then they took an X-ray of someone who battles with severe depression, and there were literally pockets that had deteriorated. Those pockets affect memory. So there are some people who, like, I can tell just by their actions, for not only from struggling with depression, but then they're like, I don't even remember what I did yesterday, yet alone last week. And for me, that plus, not just that, but that plus other things that I see, I'm like, man, this person is struggling with depression and they don't even know it. They're just thinking that, hey, I just need, something for ADHD or ADD or something like that, and not knowing that some of what they're dealing with is also depression. So it's extreme battle with memory loss. Um, it can be so severe to whereas you can walk in the house or walk from one end to the other and not even remember like what you went to do. And some people are like, oh well, everything that happens, to everybody. But when you're suffering from extreme depression, especially when it's mixed with PTSD, that can become a very, very severe thing to deal with. But one of the encouraging things that she put in her book is that towards the end, she talked about, well, how do you fix that? How do you heal that? One of the things is diet. But the other thing is that she said that by creating good memories and having good life experiences, that it was medically proven that you can begin to heal those areas that have been deteriorating. So, and I say that to say this is that if you're not around good friends, you need to get some. If you're not in a good relationship, you need to get a good relationship, because it's not going to get any better if you don't have that camaraderie around you. And that leads to my last question to both of you guys, is that I know when I first essentially was seeking help and seeking therapy costs like lot. I mean, I went, the cheapest I have found, it was like $150 an hour. Well, you know what? My issues is gonna take more than 1 hour, but I don't have that. Like as a full-time minister who, off and on work and struggling with depression, a lot of times I don't work, so I don't have that. So I was struggling on, like, well, who do I even go to? Where do I go to talk? Because do I need the help? Yes, but I don't have the money for the help. So I want both of you to speak and maybe give, if you even know, some examples on if somebody's struggling with anxiety, PTSD, depression, or if they're having suicidal thoughts and they need places where they can go to talk. Where can they go?
Um,
Go.
so we both said Celebrate Recovery, um, and that is a huge program. Depending on where they are, they can go online and just Google Celebrate Recovery and find meetings near there. That's through church. And then, fortunately, I have a church that actually has a counseling ministry that is free. So, like, people in our community can come to our church and go through the process of getting into that. Sometimes there's a little bit of a wait time just because of volume versus counselors, because it's a volunteer based counseling. We go through extensive training, and so we kind of, I mean, we know more about what we're doing. They're not licensed counselors, but they are lay counselors. Um,
Do they have
so
to be a
that's
member of
another
your
thing.
church to receive that help?
No, no, um, they do not. Um, so there are some other ones that can help, um, depending, like earlier, that some depression is seasonal and some is more mental health. Like some people experience depression because of divorce, or they experience depression because of grief and loss. So grief share and divorce care are two other programs that some churches have. Ours also have that. Um, I don't personally know the numbers, but I do know there are suicide hotlines that you can call for free in emergencies, and they will talk you through your suicidal moments. I'm sure you could Google that too. I don't know
Yeah.
the actual number, but it's like an 800 number. It's free to call. Um, some counseling centers, and I would have to get on and do some research because it would be by area, have sliding scales. Because I'm going into counseling, and I think $100 an hour is like way too much. Um,
Yes.
I mean, not that I wouldn't like to make $100 an hour, but that's not my goal. Um, so the you can go through hospitals as well, and they have referral systems where they can. Sorry, I'm falling apart. Um, they can
You're fine.
actually
You just go.
refer you to community services that can help you with counseling. So I'll let Riley jump in,
Uh,
give us some.
those are very good ones. So I believe that one of the national, I think 211 or 611 is like a national, like United Way thing that everybody can call. Yeah. Yep. So anybody can call that, and then they can refer you from that. But within any community, maybe you need to go to something that actually deals with mental health, or CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy groups, and things of that nature. Those are really good. Reach out to your other organizations that deal with social work, maybe DHS, and get a case there, and then you need a case manager so that they can help you find different resources as well. If you do have a local church, yeah, ultimately definitely go there. As we say within a recovery
What
community,
if
you
your
have to
local
develop
church doesn't, like when we've talked about this, we some of us, we grew up in church, but what if you're part of your local church, but your local church won't deal with the issue? Maybe your local church.
so
Find a
then
different one.
I would say that that's
Sorry.
that's the truth.
Jesus.
Hey, I agree. I agree.
Amen.
If they're not willing to address that or help you with that, then you may need to find somewhere that you need to be that will help you, whether it be individually or family, wise. But yeah, support systems are really good as far as small group meetings. Like they have NA, they have AA, the grief counseling, the divorce. They have Overeaters Anonymous. Because that tackles into depression as well. And then they got Smokers Anonymous. All of these things, you have to find those kind of groups. They're available out there, and those things are generally free. You can actually go to your, like you said, the hospitals. If you have a primary care physician, then you can actually get your diagnosis from there, and then they'll direct you whether you need a psychiatrist or a psychologist or a therapist, because they're all different, but they have some similarities. And there are more things that are out there as well, but you definitely would have to Google. Uh, Back in the day, the information would be limited, but now it's broad. It's very broad.
Amen. Um,
So
first
let
off,
me
thank you guys.
say this part real
Mhm.
quick, Danielle.
Yeah, jump in, jump in.
Um, Anybody who is like seriously considering suicide, like when they're listening to this or they get to that point, 911 is first response. Like if they really need that, because um, they will come help you immediately. But the
Yes.
other thing, I say find a new church, but I say that with the most sincere heart, because I really do believe everyone who is listening to this video, who may come across this video at a different time, is worth fighting for. And if you are not getting what you need to survive in a healthy and safe environment, then you're worth fighting for. And if that means finding another church, if that means admitting that you have mental health issues and finding support, then that's what it takes. So, I mean, I don't say that so flippantly, like, oh, we'll just leave
Right,
church.
right.
But you're worth it. And if that means you have to take a different path to get to where you're supposed to be, then by all means, do it, because you genuinely are worth it.
Amen. I'm glad you added that. I mean, because I was laughing, but I was so like in my spirit, I was like, yes. Like I appreciated the straightforwardness of it. I was like, because some people they're so attached or feel so guilt tripped into leaving that they stay because they feel like, well, now who am I going to talk to or who I'm going to be around, or, and it's a whole nother conversation, but you'll have pastors that are kind of sheep herd of, well, if you go somewhere else, you're not going to be blessed because, the blessings only remain on this house. Um,
Right.
and again, that all that equates into the church hurt, because then the person feels trapped. It's like, well, dang, well, I don't want to to miss out on my blessings, but at the same thing is like you guys aren't addressing it, or um, they're made to feel like they're a problem. Or again, it goes back to, well, we don't want to hear it, so because you're claiming it, and it's like, no, that's not it. So there's a lot of misconception of what goes on with it. With that being said, I want to thank you guys for joining me today. I know in 2 weeks when we have it again, I told you guys you already have an open invite, because what I want to do is even be more frank and open with it, and really describe, emotions of what are you feeling in the moment of going through suicide, like really going through the moment where you're thinking about what are some thoughts, what are some triggers, um, because there really are some triggers, but triggers are different for different people. So I don't think you can just lay out this list and say, okay, well, if you deal with this your trigger. Like, well, if I'm different, like that may not be my trigger. So um, I think the more that we tell and speak about what they are, then more people can look at that and say, okay, man, I identify that. Like we had brother or Orlando in our conversation, Raleigh, when you were talking, and there was something he had chimed in. He was like, yes. He said, I feel that way a lot. So he's acknowledging, hey man, I what you said, like I'm dealing with that, man. Like, thank you. So sometimes that just helps in knowing that somebody else is going through it.
Right.
So um, thank you guys. I would love to have you back in 2 weeks so we can get a little deeper. Um, if anybody who comes across this video where you're like, man, I have some specific questions, because I'm gonna have guests on here that's specifically going to deal with sexual trauma. That is a trauma, and sometimes that can trigger depression. It can trigger anxiety. It can trigger PTSD. Now, sexual trauma looks different from men to women as
Yes.
well.
Yeah.
Like, it is displayed differently. So let's talk about that. And some of, I know I've met some people where their sexual trauma happened from members of the church, from leaders of the church. So that's a whole other issue to deal with. So thank you guys for being open and honest, and I hope that you'll come back. I hope that anybody who comes across, if they have questions, you can email me at danyellespeaks@gmail.com. If you're on Facebook, you can just hit me through Messenger. Say, hey, I have this question, and if you don't mind me asking the question on air, then we'll address it on air. I don't have to I don't have to tell anybody your name and where it's coming from. But if you have a question, then let's talk about it. If you are listening and you need help and you just didn't know who to talk to, um, or you feel bad, you feel condemned about needing help, don't feel condemned, because some people, they won't speak up because they feel condemned about speaking up, that somebody's going to look at them and think bad of them, or all these different things. Help is healthy.
Right.
Help is healthy. So don't be afraid to reach out, and I'll even ask you guys, Angel, Riley, like if somebody had a question that came across the broadcast, could they reach out to you guys on Messenger and maybe send you
Absolutely.
guys questions?
Absolutely.
Yeah, good.
And
Thank you
if they
guys.
don't have a way to get to me and they email it, like if they message you with the question,
Mhm.
you can forward it to me and I'll be glad to get back with them.
that
Same here.
that works. That works. So feel free to go back and look at this on Facebook, or I will be uploading it to my YouTube channel, Danyelle Speaks, and in 2 weeks we will be back again. So thank you so much, Angel. Thank you, you so much, Riley. Had a good time, and I look forward to meeting
Thanks for
again.
having me.
No
Yeah. Thanks
problem.
for having us. Appreciate it.
All
Nice
right.
to meet you, Angel.
Oh, no, I feel like your mother. Like from we were separated at birth. Everything you were saying, I was like, "Yep, me too."
Amen. I love it. I
That's
love
what
it.
it's
God
about.
bless.
God
God
bless.
bless. Talk to you guys soon.
All right.